to Chapter 15 on Host Defenses, Part 1. So when we're talking about host defenses, we're talking about defenses of the body that help fight off infections and diseases. So we have three different kinds. And there are barrier defenses, innate immunity, and adapted immunity. So with the barrier defenses, these are natural, and these include your skin, tears, the mucus, the earwax, the stomach acid. Innate immunity, this is the defense system you were actually born with, and it protects you against all antigens. And then adaptive immunity, this is usually developed after you've contracted like an infection or after you've had a vaccination. Like we take the flu vaccine, and that gives us an adaptive immunity to the flu because we've already been predisposed to it. And this will come into play once that foreign substance, such as the flu, if it tries to enter your body, well, you've had the flu vaccine, so it kind of helps to fight that flu off. Next, we'll talk a little bit about markers in the immune system. So these are proteins that determine our ability to resist these harmful agents, such as bacteria and other foreign substances. These can include those dendritic cells, the macrophages, the NK cells, which is natural killer cells, those T cells, B cells, or T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, and then our mast cells and our neutrophils. So this is a list of different body systems that aid in our immune system. Um, we have the bone marrow, the thymus, the lymphatic system, the complement system, the spleen, the tonsils, and the lymph nodes. And some of these go hand in hand, but all these have a part in helping our immune system fight off diseases and infections. And we'll kind of get a little more into detail on these in the next couple of slides. So first we're going to talk about that lymphatic system. And we know that this includes our lymph nodes, those lymphatic vessels, and those lymphoid organs and tissues. This system actually produces cells and antibodies that protect our body from infection and disease. It produces and releases those lymphocytes, those T and B cells. It actually keeps the fluid in the body balanced, and it will actually drain that extra lymph fluid into other tissues from the capillaries, which are tiny vessels. Next, we're going to talk about a little bit about bone marrow. We know we have different kinds of bone marrow, but they call the bone marrow typically the blood cell factory. And that's because it releases mature blood cells into the bloodstream when it is required to. It also produces our white blood cells, which are needed to fight off infections. Bone marrow is also responsible for producing those T and B lymphocytes. The B cells actually stay in the marrow to mature, while the T cells have to travel to the thymus to mature. So both start out in the same place, but they don't both actually stay in the bone marrow. Next, we're actually going to talk about that thymus. And I provided a picture for you here just so you can kind of see where the thymus is located in the body. And you can see it's right there. You have your lungs, and it's right kind of at the top in the middle. So your thymus is responsible for training those white blood cells to aid in fighting off infection. It actually grows to its largest size during your childhood years, and before you reach your teenage years, all the T cells you'll ever need have already been produced. And a lot of them were produced before you were born. This is also known as the throne of immunity. It actually develops the immune system. The thymus can actually be removed with no effect on immunity after it has reached its full potential. And that's partly because, like I said, a lot of your T cells were produced before you were born. Next, we're going to talk about the complement system. So this actually defends the body from foreign invaders such as bacteria and viruses. It activates the proteins that work, with the immune system. It induces those inflammatory responses that help fight infection. And it also stimulates phagocytosis and lysis of foreign cells and substances, which we've spoke about before. This is where it will kill these invading cells. Next, we have the spleen, and I also provided a picture here so you can kind of see where your spleen was located. It's the little orange thing that looks like a bean. Your spleen is responsible for storing and filtering blood. It is part of that lymphatic system. Like I said before, some of these go hand in hand. It actually makes your white blood cells. Your spleen can protect you against bloodstream bacterial infections. And it is also an antibody producing organ. So your spleen will produce the antibodies that are responsible for fighting off pathogens. Next, we have our tonsils. And we all know where our tonsils are located. Um, these help stop germs from entering your body that are trying to come through your nose or your mouth. These contain a lot of white blood cells, and they're actually a barrier for our immune system. Sometimes people have to have their tonsils surgically removed, and after the removal, they may experience more illness just kind of because you removed that barrier for that nose and that mouth. So there's kind of nothing there to stop those from entering your body. And last, we'll talk about the lymph nodes. And as you can see through this picture, you have about 600 throughout your whole body. So your lymph nodes are everywhere. And these actually monitor and cleanse lymph as it filters through. Your lymph nodes can actually clear damaged and cancerous cells. They store your lymphocytes and they destroy harmful substances like bacteria. So lymph nodes are actually a very important process throughout your body. So we'll get a little more into those T lymphocytes, which are also called T cells. Uh, like we stated before, they start out in that bone marrow, but they tend to migrate on into the thymus. Um, the immature T cells are actually called thymocytes. They have antigen-specific receptors on their cell surface where they target specific pathogens and try to destroy them before they can cause harm. These actually include memory cells, natural killer cells, which are also called NKT cells, and they include the gamma delta cells. Next, we have our B lymphocytes, and these originate in the bone marrow. They produce antibodies. These will clear pathogens in the body and at your mucosal surfaces. These can transform into plasmacytes. They are a type of white blood cell, and they are also called a beta cell. Some types of B lymphocytes include transitional, memory, and naive. These are your different types. Next, we'll kind of talk about um, the components of your first line of immune defense. And these include your skin, tears, mucus, cilia, stomach acid, urine flow, some friendly bacteria, and white blood cells, such as neutrophils. So these are in the first line of defense. These are your things that is going to kick in at first to try and keep the pathogens out. Well, and those go with these body systems, the integumentary, which is your skin, urinary, we know, respiratory, and digestive. So, things such as your tears and urine flow, these all help to keep those pathogens up and out of your body. This is your first line of defense. So, if your first line of defense fails, your body will pick up with the second lines of defense. And some of those components are things such as hematopoiesis, granulocytes, basophils, mast cells, monocytes, those NKT, natural killer cells, and granulocytes. So if something, say, breaks through your skin, some type of pathogen, and it gets inside the body, these are the things that are going to try to meet it next and try to stop it from there. Some of the systems that are included in this is that complement system we talked about before, the lymphatic system, which contains those lymph nodes and that spleen, cytokines, which we will talk a little more in depth about next, and your circulatory system, which includes those blood cells and things. So, first line of defense is your outer, like we said. Second line of defense is the inner, and if it makes it past that, there are other defenses, but that'll go hand in hand in next chapter. So last we're going to talk about your cytokines. So these are actually signaling proteins, and they kind of help control that inflammatory response that happens within the body. Um, these actually stimulate the growth of those lymphocytes, and they kind of help to regulate the immune response. But if too many cytokines are present, This can result in an excess of inflammation and it can lead to conditions such as autoimmune diseases. So, some are good, but too much probably not the best.